and welcome back to That Rugby podcast hosted by the Sports Booth. Today, me, Hughesy, here with you. I think we can get straight on to the biggest news of
where it's fitting that we're back in the Sports Booth studio because that seems to be the theme of the week, return. The return, Eddie Jones, right? First it was LeBron, now it's Eddie Jones. Both equally as big and important. For those of you that have been living under a rock or out in a sheep pasture or in a herd of kangaroos, wherever you might be, that you haven't had access to social media or the news or any kind of thing, and the one bit of internet access you get a week, you think, I'm going to download That Rugby podcast presented by the Sports Booth. For the breaking news for those of you out there, Dave Rennie has had his contract terminated by Rugby Australia, and Eddie Jones has been hired on a 5-year deal. Now, 5 years important in there because it covers the Rugby World Cup for this year, 2023, and the next World Cup in 2027.
Yes.
Safe to say that this has caused quite the stir. And one of the things we said that Rugby Australia needed to do in this golden era was marketing and news. Well, it was a great start to the year.
They smashed that part. They definitely did. I
want to hear your reaction as someone outside of Australia's system.
Yeah, for someone who doesn't care about Australia rugby that much. Like, I care on a global stage because you want everyone to be, like, you want it a competitive, you want good games in rugby. But from a man who loves holding the Bledisloe safe in his cabinet, it sent chills down my spine a little bit. Now, I'm saying this not because I didn't think Rennie could get the job done. Like, I don't want to dismiss Rennie's coaching ability. It's just Eddie's got that X factor. You can put him up there as probably one of the best coaches in the world at the moment. Like, if I look around, I go Scott Robertson, Warren Gatland, Farrell at the moment, and Eddie Jones are probably like the four.
No Ian Foster in there.
No Ian Foster in there. Which I'll get onto that very soon. But
I would argue you could also put Michael Checker up there with what he's done with Argentina.
Agreed. Yes, you could. You could definitely do him, and even someone like Ronan. And even I'm putting Scott Robertson up there, but he's had no international experience. So if you're going the four of international coaches who are deserved of like a Mount Rushmore type thing, you're going probably Checker, Jones, Gatland, and Farrell at the moment. It sends a little bit of a chills because you know what he can do, what Eddie can do. I don't want to take away from Rennie because I think Rennie, I don't think he does obviously deserve this, but Australian rugby, anyone who thinks Australian rugby are in the wrong for this, I don't think quite understand the situation they were in and what they needed to do. So I look at it and I go, look, no one, Rennie doesn't deserve it. I don't think so. I think he was still building and could have won a World Cup, but Eddie Jones would have been getting offers left, right and centre. And Australia had to act fast. And I think we all knew, and we had discussed this pretty heavily, Rennie's reign was coming to an end after this World Cup. I didn't see any point of him going any further. He wasn't truly back. Like, even a World Cup win, I think he had done his bit. Like, he would have loved to have done these 4 years and gone, yep, my time's done. But he had done his bit.
I think even in his closing sort of statement that came out today, he said, obviously I'm upset that I couldn't close out my contract the way I wanted to. And that was it. That was what he said, so to get to the end of his contract, to get to this World Cup. And I think, we had obviously some reactions texting each other when the news broke. And one of the things that was brought up was that the fact that there was so much speculation about what Rennie would do after this World Cup, and there was no certainty. And, has he got, he doesn't have both eyes on the prize. He's already got one eye looking ahead. And I think maybe Rugby Australia, I'm sure that wasn't the only reason, but that was a reason that they were worried he's not fully focused on it. I think as well, we said before, this is Rugby Australia's time to shine with the next Rugby World Cup being here. You want to have that certainty and structure for the next World Cup. Now, maybe they'd gone to Eddie Jones and said, can you do from 2024 onwards? Can you get that done? He said, and I'm sure he would have said, no, it's now or never. Yeah. And I'm sure there would have been talks about, can you be assistant for this one and then take over the reins after that? No, it's now or never. And Eddie Jones has earned the right to make those demands, to set his terms, basically, especially, coming over to Australia and winning that series with England, I think was massive.
Yep.
And just the success England has had. So I think he's dictated the rights there. And yeah, as you said, he probably had offers coming in left, right, and centre, very lucrative offers from cashed up countries. I'm sure Japan would have been sniffing around him again and things like that.
The US would have been coming for him.
Yeah, exactly.
I imagine some clubs in France would have been like, holy moly, could we land the prize of everyone's eyes?
And so is a case of now or never. I think I saw an Instagram post. I forget which account did it. One of the great rugby accounts that help support us. I'm sure we'll have links to them in the podcast or in one of our posts. Great guys all around. That said, Eddie Jones was on the shelves now and was there for a limited time only, and Rugby Australia needed to grab him. From an Australian rugby fan's perspective, it is a shame to see Rennie go out like that and not having coached a World Cup. But yeah, I think the writing was on the walls that it was going to be gone after the World Cup anyway. There was so there was already sort of this feeling of like, well, he's half gone already, kind of thing. So it's not, especially for me, just being totally, it's not especially upsetting. Yes, it is exciting to have Eddie Jones, and it is disappointing to see that's the way Rennie's thing comes to an end. But that's just how the cookies crumbled in this case. And I am really excited to see what Eddie Jones can do with this roster. But I do want to give massive credit to Dave Rennie for what he's done over the past 3 years, right? He's taken an Australian rugby squad that at the last World Cup, you could arguably say underperformed.
Yeah.
Right? Underperformed. And then years of trying to figure out, okay, who are the players we need? Where do we need to get to? And you can see that year after year, it has been building. I still remember even his first test. It was against New Zealand, I think in New Zealand, and it was a draw. Yeah. Right? And it was almost a win for Australia off a penalty kick.
Reece Hodge 55-metre special, yeah.
Yeah, so he clearly brought something to the table in that regard. And then there were a lot of things that were, obstructing his path. A lot of injuries in this past year, especially. Yep. The Giteau law, of course, affecting how well he can coach and things like that as well. So, and as well as that, a waning interest in rugby at the time, COVID, things like that. But he's brought Australia through all of those trials in a stronger position. I think Eddie Jones has got to be really grateful to Dave Rennie for having done all this research, exposed all these players to the international scene. The revival of the Australia A squad will be huge for Eddie as well, to know the depth of the talent at his disposal. So
the improvements of the Super Rugby team,
exactly,
it goes on like it. That's a whole picture thing. It's not just hey, we brought in Eddie Jones. That's what. And again, I think the big thing that sat probably with Rugby Australia that said to make this decision was 73% versus 38%. Yeah. Now, we can make as many excuses as we want for Rennie, but 38% isn't good enough. No. Like, as much as we can sit here and say he's done all these great things, which he has, taken them through turbulent times, if an All Blacks coach is at 38% after 5 games, they're gone, as far as I'm concerned. And you probably couldn't get to 38%. But, I think that number and seeing Eddie Jones at 73% just hit the open market was like, we're never going to get this opportunity again. We have to act now. And I think they did the right thing acting now.
Eddie Jones, it's the simple thing of Dave Rennie has improved his team, but he hasn't shown that he knows how to coach them to win. And there are some fair criticisms of his coaching. So I think, his sort of long-term vision and strategy has been better than his coaching, almost. And his talent development has been better than his coaching. So it's the in-game decisions and things like that, bench management, things of that nature have been what have cost Rennie.
Yeah, and I guess we will definitely see how this all pans out. For me, I think in the end, it doesn't, like, as much as we can question Rennie's coaching ability, everything like that, it doesn't hurt his legacy, what's happened here. He'll go on, coach some big team in Japan, make some money that way. It's not the end of the world. I think he's just gutted that he would love to have a go at the World Cup with this Australian team. Australia have made the right move. I mean, let the mind games begin, we could just about say, with the Bledisloe. Like, this is what sends chills down my back. Ian Foster's showing he's got enough.
Yeah.
He's got a good team around him now, I think. New Zealand rugby's starting to give him a bit of a push in the right direction, getting him in the right position with everything. And then this happens, and Eddie Jones comes in with his mental warfare.
Yeah.
And you know that strategy Eddie Jones goes in with those hyped up press conferences where he kind of makes some jokes and then calls out a reporter, and then it's like nothing you'd ever get from Dave Rennie. You know, it's just going to be a different vibe. What I would like to say as well, just to finish off kind of the Rennie versus Jones battle, as a New Zealander, when you're coaching the Wallabies, you're always going to have one hand tied behind your back. And it's not a purposeful, like, I don't say Australian rugby tried to sabotage Rennie. It's more, you're a New Zealander.
Yeah.
When you're a Wallabies fan, you don't care as long as he gets the job done. But you're going to be, if, say, Eddie Jones is at 40%, whereas Rennie's at 36%, you'd still rather Eddie Jones than a slightly better New Zealander coacher. So I think the Wallabies fans are going to get behind this move big time, because now they've got their Australian, they've got the one that took them to a final.
Yeah.
You know, it is the sought after the golden boy.
Every Wallaby fan, except for the one that called Eddie Jones a traitor at the Test match last year, is going to be very excited about this. That guy can never show himself at a rugby match again.
Yeah, it's not pretty for him. But I wanted to talk about a couple other points going forward. Obviously, you just had the camp of the 40 players.
Yeah.
Now, I'm less worried about, because I imagine all these conversations were happening in the background, and Rugby Australia had to move fast, and they don't want to upset the players. Like, if you imagine this is the bosses are getting rid of your manager, you're not going to tell your employees to stop working and then just get rid of the manager. So they have to keep them working. I just imagine those 40 players went away on that camp, and now they've got a different coach that they've got to impress, different game plans, and it does seem a little bit weird. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. It's definitely an odd cycle for them.
Catch-22 though, you know, if they do it before and then they don't have this camp, then it's like, okay, what's happening?
How is Eddie going to organise the camp in time and things like that? Look, it will be strange for the players where they've just gone through this camp with one coach, and then they might feel like that's wasted time. I don't agree that it's wasted time, because it's also important to build those bonds between the players and to build that chemistry and understanding between each other. And it's not as if Eddie Jones and Dave Rennie will have completely different coaching styles. Yeah. Anyway, like, I'm sure there will be elements of what they've learned that will apply through to when Jones takes the reins formally. Yeah, which is, I think, the end of this month.
28th, he takes over. I wonder what staff he brings in around him will be really interesting, and if he keeps the staff going.
How many of them? Yeah, like McKellar from
exactly
and things like that.
I imagine there'll be a couple, but it'll be really interesting. A man with that power can definitely, acquire some better coaches and stuff like that.
It'd be interesting to see if he raids international ranks.
Exactly.
If he brings some people over from England, France, Ireland, etc.
100%. All of a sudden you got Ronan Nagara as your backs coach. That's not a bad shout. But again, what I wanted to ask you, and I've got my own idea for this, but pass marks now for Eddie Jones. What do you consider a pass mark? I know Tim Horan came out and said, like, couple Bledisloes, need a World Cup in one of these two World Cups, and like a win rate above 50% is a pass mark. Now, I think that's a pretty high goal for right now, but I would love to know, at the end of this year, what's a pass mark for you to Eddie Jones, and then at the end of the 5 years?
End of this year, Wallabies have to, at bare minimum, make a semi-final of the World Cup. If they don't make the semi-final of the World Cup, because that's what the standard for Rennie was. Yep. So I think the pass mark for Eddie Jones is what the standard was for Dave Rennie this year, right? So the standard for Dave Rennie this year would have been to make it to a semi-final of the World Cup, right? In terms of domestic competition, I say domestic competition, but, rugby championship, Bledisloe and whatnot.
Yeah.
If he wins the Bledisloe this year, I would say it's a more than above pass mark. That's an extraordinary achievement for a coach. It's his first year of his system. So I would say that to be for a pass, it has to be 1-1, right? Because I think that's what we we expected from Rennie, as well, as to win at least one game of the Bledisloe.
Yep.
Right. And
if, say, he won the Bledisloe, Hal on Earth came to us and he won the Bledisloe, would you take then, like, say he bombs out in the group stage of the World Cup?
No.
You're not
No, because then because the Bledisloe happens before the World Cup, so he set the standard at that point.
That's the
so
standard.
if any, yes, and that doesn't move the goalpost later on.
Yeah.
Right. If you're asking me, would I rather make a World Cup semi-final or get a Bledisloe? Of course, the Bledisloe, because
but
if you're saying would I rather win a World Cup or the Bledisloe World Cup?
Yeah.
But the standard for Rennie this year was to win one Bledisloe game.
Yeah.
Right. This year he arguably should have done that, barring a very stupid call. And then so it would be expected for him to do that again, and then to make a World Cup semi-final. So those, I think, are the two benchmarks for Jones as passes, right?
Yeah.
For people to not be out in the street saying, "Why the fuck did we do this?"
Yeah.
And then you could what I would love to see, what I would consider. So that's a pass. What I would consider success is again World Cup semi-final. That doesn't change, but then winning the rugby championship is like, and that's doable without winning the Bledisloe. And then I think, so you're right. I think a B mark for that, and then A plus mark, win the Bledisloe, win the rugby championship. A World Cup semi-final. Sorry, that's an A. A plus is win the World Cup, and there you go. So that's like the grading system I'm sort of going.
Yeah.
on.
So you're saying like kind of if he ticks, say he was to win
certain
the Bledisloe,
boxes to tick. It's almost like incentives you need to reach in a contract, goals you need to reach in your contract.
So as incentive, first one, win one game in the Bledisloe.
So this is your bare minimum to not get fired, like on your performance report. Win one game of the Bledisloe and make it to the World Cup semi-final, because that is the standard of the guy that you replace. That's your job description. That is what you need to do. Right?
And obviously he's not going to get fired. But again, that's what we're pointing out. Like if
that is what Dave Rennie
doesn't deliver that, say you lose two Bledisloe games and you go out in the quarterfinals, you go, what, like, okay, yeah, great, we look forward to the future, but we could have done this at the end of the end of the year, and Dave Rennie may have had a better shot with the group he had.
Because he had a longer time there, right? Now, say for example he loses both Bledisloe games, but they were really close or whatever. You could sort of waver. But if we get blown out in two Bledisloe games, it's like, what the fuck are we doing, kind of thing.
A lot of pressure would fall on him in the World Cup.
Exactly, yeah, and then if he has success in the World Cup, that alleviates it somewhat. Exactly. So there's two goals there, but they're trade-offs, depending. But I say that even if he wins the Bledisloe, I'm still holding him to the standard then of the World Cup semi-final, because that comes beforehand. But if he loses two Bledisloes, but then makes it to the World Cup final, that alleviates it. But the Bledisloe one is first, so
it's tough. Yeah, I get it.
It's a timing thing as well.
5 years. After 5 years, what are you saying is a pass mark? What would actually let me word this better, because after 5 years as a Wallabies fan, what would you expect in your trophy cabinet? So you're going to have two World Cup, 5 Bledisloes, 5 rugby championships. Yeah,
look, at least 2 rugby championships, right? Because we're in there with New Zealand, South Africa, and Argentina, right? So I think 2 is achievable, because New Zealand and South Africa, you can't take away how good they are. Like as good as Eddie Jones is, those teams are very, very good as well, right? And at least 1 Bledisloe. Like if he's coming in as the prodigal son, we've seen that Dave Rennie has pushed Australia to be more competitive again in Bledisloe after years of just not being competitive. So he's pushed us to the competitive stage. If Eddie Jones is supposed to be so much better, he should be then elevating us to the next stage of regaining the Bledisloe, right? So at least 1 Bledisloe. And then, look, the World Cup in Australia, your expectation is that you win it on home soil, right? That is your expectation. That is what you have to be aiming for. He would have then had the 5 years to do it. Now, barring any sort of catastrophic thing coming through, that should remain the expectation. And that's a very tall order. And say he gets to the final and he loses a tie one, that is what it is, kind of thing. You can kind of, it's bitter, but you're not going to be
2003, you look back and you still have fond memories of how good the Wallabies were back then. So.
So you could see that, but the expectation should be that we should be in the World Cup final, and we should win it when it's here.
Yeah. Okay. No. Well, I'm very similar with what I would have said, and especially in this first year. I think if he wins a Bledisloe or gets anywhere near a World Cup final, that's a pass mark for him. 1-1 and a semi-final, I think, is bare minimum you'd like to take. And then 5 years, I probably would have said 2 Bledisloes, just because of the hype this has already brought in once they start rolling.
Well, one of the other big things as well is he's already come out and said he wants to raid rugby league ranks, right?
Joseph Suaalii, Will Penasini.
Nelson Asafa Solomona, I thought was a massive call, particularly because he's a New Zealander. But
I can't see him playing for the Wallabies anytime soon.
No, I wouldn't want him to play for the Wallabies, to be quite honest. It's just, again, another ill-disciplined thing.
And, I mean, I played rugby with him growing up. He's New Zealand born and bred. I can't see him... But even he must have been offered more money than he's getting at the Storm, and he's still chosen to stay in Melbourne. Like, I just think he loves Melbourne. Maybe if the money does come rolling, then he'll go and play for the Rebels. But I don't think that's even a need when I look at your second row ranks. I'm like, no. He's 3 years younger than me, so about 25-ish. Like, he'll be 29. I look around at Swinton, Charlie Gamble, even Harry Wilson. I go, do you need? That's not a position in need. So some of those other ones, Suaalii, Penasini.
Suaalii, I'd love to see. Penasini would be an interesting one.
Who were the other one? There was
one other one. Manly flyer Tolu Kola.
Yeah, Kola. Cola. Yeah, Tolu Kola. Yeah, he's quick as well. So if you get 3 of those, that's
Yeah, look,
Suaalii just locks up that fullback spot.
Exactly. That would be massive, right? And it's not going to happen for this year for this World Cup, right? But for the next one,
I mean, he's only 19 now, so and even Penasini's only 20. You get them in the next couple of years. Like, there's no reason they can't. So it'll be interesting to see. The last point I wanted to touch on with this is the Giteau law. Now, obviously, we talk about this every podcast.
Yeah.
The Giteau law is a height of what we talk about because of the issues. Mm-hmm. Do you reckon Eddie Jones has enough power now to get rid of it?
I think if any one coach has got the power to shift it, it's Jones.
Yeah.
Right? I would love to know if there was any chat when he was coming into this role about changes to the Giteau law or not, and if we're going to hear about those anytime soon. Hasn't said anything about it in any of his conferences yet about if there's any changes. So I'd love to know if that was part of the discussions, because like one of the things he did say was, one of the big things he said is making sure we bring back players who should be who are Wallabies and that need to be playing in the Wallabies.
Yeah.
Now that's sort of a veiled thing about your Will Skeltons and your
Will Skelton especially. He loves Will Skelton.
Yes, and Will Skelton's already come out and said how much he loves Eddie Jones.
So yeah.
So I would. Yeah, I think. I mean, you just fucking scrap it already.
I reckon.
Scrap it or make it more players. Like, you just need to expand it.
I reckon it wouldn't surprise me if roughly like the camp before Bledisloe, like let Super Rugby get its hype up. Camp before the Bledisloe comes up after like Super Rugby's just finishing up. They announce something like really good marketing stunt, like Giteau law gone, like all the news drops just like this.
Yeah. Giteau law dropped or Giteau law doubled, like take it to 6 players.
6 players, whatever they do, I reckon those moves will be made closer to the Bledisloe. Because they've got this announcement, everyone's still talking about Eddie Jones.
You want to space it out, for marketing.
Yeah,
as well,
so I think, look, we could see a lot of things happen.
Could be a very exciting year for Rugby Australia. Yeah.
It could be a massive year. It's the start of the golden generation. We said they had to act, and they've acted.
Like I said at the top of the podcast, they needed to generate marketing. What have they done? They've generated incredible marketing.
I'm left in bemusement that it's taken this long for Rugby Australia to get a head or a CEO who's actually done something. You can't sit there, say this fails miserably. Eddie Jones doesn't do anything in his 5 years. You chucked everything you had at it. He's bringing the World Cup back home. He even looked at leaving Super Rugby. He's now brought Eddie Jones back. I just go, have you seen the one where he's trying to get more free-to-air games? The only
sport in Australia
that wants that. So the Rugby League, AFL are all complaining about the government taking away or trying to get more
free-to-air, which is less revenue for them.
Which is less revenue. Rugby Australia or Rugby in Australia have said they want more free-to-air games.
I mean, Rugby Australia needs more revenue of all of them, right?
Exactly,
all the sports. So it shows that the shift of priorities is building rugby back up, which is a great thing to see from the top-down level.
Now, I'm going to leave you. You've got a minute and a half for your last words on Eddie Jones' situation, if you've got any, to finish us off.
My last words on the Eddie Jones situation is he has been brought here to improve Australian rugby, right? The big number that you mentioned, I'm very glad you brought it up, was the 38%, the win rate, right? Eddie Jones knows how to win, but he now had experience in Japanese rugby and English rugby, so he's got experience of that Northern Hemisphere style, what it takes to win, right? And I expect to see more discipline in the Wallabies ranks, and I expect to see converting those games where we almost won into games that we're actually winning now. We need to get... It's appropriate as well that you mentioned the 2003 World Cup. That's where we need to get Australia back to that's the standard of Australian rugby, is making World Cup finals and being a team that everybody fears again, right? That everybody fears, not just for one game, like, you know, when they're on that Northern Tour, you know, everyone's like, oh, Australia can take a game off anyone, right? But that's the threat that we're being seen as. They could take a game. We need to get back to Australia being seen as the threat to be the number one team in the world again. That's what Eddie Jones has been brought here to do. That's what I want him to do, and he's got the talent to do it. He's got the players to do it. It's not the players now, right? The talent is all there, right? What it is now is coaching, and that's the difference. And Rugby Australia rolled the dice, as you just said with your great recap there. They've thrown everything they've got at trying to make this the golden era of Australian rugby. They've done a great first step with hiring Eddie Jones. It's every journey of a 1,000 miles begins with a single step, and this is the first step.
Oh, there it is. There it is. I mean, we're going to talk about Eddie Jones probably for the next 4 or 5 podcasts, so be ready to hear any news that's coming out with him. He doesn't officially start the role until the 28th, so we're still a bit away from him actually getting his hands on with the Wallabies, and Super Rugby will be starting soon, but I'm sure Eddie Jones will be all over that. I just wanted to quickly touch on, we won't talk too much about this, but Netflix and the Six Nations that they've done. So if you haven't seen Drive to Survive, the success of that, which is following all the Formula One drivers, they've now brought out a tennis and a PGA Tour one. So they've now gone and said that they're going to do one for the Six Nations.
Genuinely excited for this. I've only seen little bits of Drive to Survive, haven't seen the other ones, but the amount of interest that generated in Formula One is insane. Now with Six Nations and with a sport I actually care about, like, I'm genuinely excited for this, and I think it's going to be amazing. I think it's going to be
huge. I think that the thing behind and why I think the Six Nations is really good is I think you get a lot more personalities from those Northern Hemisphere teams. I don't think you don't get it from the Southern Hemisphere teams, but we hide it a bit better. I think you're going to quickly find out, like, when a Frenchman is angry and he's getting interviewed, and like he'll let you know. And when the Scots are disappointed that the English have beat them again, they'll let you know on camera. So I can't wait to kind of see the insides, see the characters like Stuart Hogg, realise that Antoine Dupont is actually the nicest guy in the world all of a sudden, and be like, oh, why did I hate him just because he's French? You know, like.
And I think as well, one reason why it works to start with the Six Nations, and then they can maybe look. I think do Six Nations and then a rugby championship one, but as well, Six Nations as opposed to Super Rugby. I think there's too many teams in Super Rugby.
No, you can't follow the characters as well. Yeah,
you could maybe do like Super Rugby, one team from
one country type.
Yeah, do like a Hard Knocks type thing, but for Super Rugby, stand sport. Just saying, there you go.
Hire us.
Hard Knocks Waratahs 2023. I know. Should already be on that shit. Sean Maloney, get on it. Seeing a rugby championship version would be like amazing.
Imagine after, I don't know if you saw the incident with Pablo Matera pushing Dane Coles. Imagine getting an interview with him after about why that was. Just, I know we got it on the What a Lad podcast with James Marshall, but it's going to be awesome. So we'll stay tuned for that. I'm sure we'll do a thorough review of it all. What we are moving on to now is our predictions for the rugby year. We said we're going to do this for a long time. We are doing it now. We are
men of our word.
We are. The first prediction we're going to start with is player of the year. I'm going to start with mine. Now, I predicted this player to be player of the year last year. And he lived up to the billing, but not quite. I think the All Blacks had a mellow enough year. I've gone with Will Jordan again to back it up. Now, what you kind of have to do with this year is understand who you think is going to win the Rugby World Cup. Because chances are, if they win the Rugby World Cup, the player's going to come from there. So I went looking at New Zealand, South Africa, and Ireland were the 3 teams I was looking at. So I kind of had Johnny Sexton on his way out. I had a Faf de Klerk, maybe Lucano Arm if he can get into form. But I've gone with Will Jordan. Ardie Savea is up there as well with the way he played, and he backs it up. And if the All Blacks win, then I think Will Jordan's going to stand out again this year for the All Blacks. Husey, my friend.
Yes. So I was a similar thought train to you in that I thought that it's all going to be about international success and how the team does. Now, my ones are coming from the Wallabies ranks. Now, I'm sort of torn between 2. I couldn't decide between these 2 players.
Yep.
Marika Koroibete and/or Samu Kerevi, right? I think both of these players are going to have huge years under Eddie Jones. And I don't know if the Wallabies will win the World Cup this year or not, but I think the Wallabies will do damage at the World Cup, and it'll be on the backs of these 2 players. I mean, we saw what Kerevi did at the last World Cup, right? And where he was also unfairly yellow carded. I'm still bitter about that. But the thing with Kerevi, why I'm hesitant to just put him in there, is he's coming back from an injury. When you see where he gets back to. Koroibeti's already tearing it up in the... We've already got our first rugby highlight of the year is him in Japan. So he doesn't look like he's lost a step. So I think one of these 2... Well, I think both of them will have big years under Eddie Jones, and I think they've got a really good chance. Even if the Wallabies don't win the World Cup, I think if they get to the final and have a great final and just fall short, then it'll be off the backs of one of these 2 that they're there in the first place, and I could see either of them taking it.
Up. Fair enough. Super Rugby champions. Yeah. You can start, mate.
Well, I've gone for
you've obviously lost the plot.
Well, I've gone for the Waratahs. I mean, look, they're building up something great there at the Waratahs. And this, it'll make a lot of sense. Well, I've got to say something because we're going to go through our team's rosters, what we think the starting 23 should be. And I'm going to just sort of talk about the positions there and the strength of the squad that I think this is a squad that can compete with anyone. And they showed that they could last year. And I'm just backing them to have a good year. I mean, Crusaders is obviously the obvious choice. Any given year in Super Rugby, anyone could say Crusaders, and you've got a 50% chance of being right, basically.
Which is outrageous because there's 12 teams.
Exactly, yeah. So, but I don't know. I feel like there's something in the air. I don't know. Eddie Jones is back. Just all Australian players have got that extra little bit of motivation of Eddie Jones is about. I could be a Wallaby. I could win the World Cup this year.
What's his face? Donaldson plays for Randwick, doesn't he? I'm pretty sure he does. Ben Donaldson plays for Randwick, and Eddie Jones is a good Randwick man. You reckon Ben Donaldson's going to lead you to glory, the Randwick connection? Yeah.
Look, as I was saying, every player this year has got that little bit of extra motivation because it's a World Cup year.
Yep.
So you want to perform, and you want to be a Wallaby and be in the World Cup. And with Eddie Jones, you got that little thing in the back of your mind, like, we could win the World Cup this year. I want to be a World Cup winning player. And so I think every player's got a little bit of extra motivation, right? And then, I mean, Ben Donaldson is a great one to look at on the Waratahs as, look, there's no, outside of Quade Cooper, there's no set 10 for the Wallabies, right? I could have a great breakout year and establish myself as the Wallabies 10 and lead them to World Cup glory, right? You've got...
we'll get to it,
but I'm just looking at the Waratahs lineup, and
I'm getting too excited.
There's a lot of strengths there, and look, of course, there's a little bit of fan bias.
Let's bring the podcast back to reality because I've picked the Crusaders because I'm not crazy. Like,
not even pick your own team.
No, because the reason I've picked the Crusaders is this is their final year of dominance.
Oh, okay.
This is it.
Because they're all leaving.
Scott Robertson won't be there, so it'll be a new coach next time. They've lost their forwards coach already to the All Black setup, so it'll be a different forwards coach this year. Richie Mwanga's on the way out with no set 10 behind him. So they haven't. I know they've got Fergus Burke and they brought a 10 down from the Waikato, but they've got no set 10 behind him. I go and look around and I go, if there's a time for the dynasty to wrap itself up nicely, it's. Yeah, we won the first 2 Super Rugby Pacifics, and they roll off into the sunset.
Well, I think we've seen, and it's particularly prescient that Tom Beattie and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers lost yesterday. That dynasties They don't always end on highlights. And
But
typically they don't. Even Tom Brady's last year at the Patriots didn't end on a high.
But their first 5 is only like 30, not 47.
Yeah.
So, you know what I mean? Like, I just think this Crusaders dynasty is different to anything else in the world in sporting we've ever seen. Like, the way they produce talent and get talent. So I don't even think it's going to die. I just think this is the start of a little decline, little drop in. Like, I don't
back to mortality.
Yeah, like exactly. This is the Melbourne Storm, you know, final year of their dominance. Cam Smith's about to retire, and then shit hits the fan, and Penrith come out of nowhere. The Hurricanes with their young guns, and they steal a couple Super Rugby titles. Breakthrough Player of the Year.
You skipped one.
I have. Six Nations champion. Just because of the Netflix documentary, we're going to put our predictions out there.
Yeah.
Now, I've gone with Ireland, and I'm going to go with my piece first. Ireland play France and England at home. Last year, France won it all because they played Ireland at home. I don't think any team's walking into Ireland and beating them. I don't think Ireland has to worry too much about going to any other team and beating them that's not France and England. Done, dusted. Six Nations win for Ireland.
It's a good argument. It's a good argument. One thing you haven't taken into account there is human emotion, passion, and the bitterness that can only be felt from a breakup. And for that reason, I've gone for England, right? Because they're the ones that got rid of Eddie Jones, right? But they have got that little chip on their shoulder. Now that Eddie Jones has been welcomed back to Australia, hailed as a hero, they're all going to be there like, oh, what the fuck? You're just forgetting about us. We got rid of him. We're the one that dumped him. So I think they're going to have a bit of extra fire this year to play extra hard and prove that they made the right decision. And I think that for that reason, I'm picking England.
I just don't think their squad's good enough yet to beat Ireland in Ireland. That's what I'm looking at. This Irish team is a good squad. I think the French team's false. Like I've spoken about this at lengths that their last year perfect 10 all done in easy games or at home. South Africa at home, Ireland at home, Australia at home. Who'd you play? Oh, Japan away. Like, don't try that with me. Okay, easy games. I think they even played England last year at home. So I don't see... and it's not a bad thing for France to not win. Like, I don't know if this is the Six Nations to win type thing. Like, it's not the Rugby Championship to win. No one cares about the Rugby Championship this year. Let's be honest. Like, it's Bledisloe and the World Cup. So I think Ireland just too good with the home ground advantage.
Yeah. Look, I mean, I think it's a great argument, and I could very easily see that happen as well.
Now on to Breakthrough Player of the Year. And I'm just going to start quickly on this because yours is I see how you're all looping in here. I've gone with Lucas Ripley. Now, the reason I've done this is Lucas Ripley is an outside centre for the Melbourne Rebels. Scored a hat-trick against the Hurricanes. Looked incredible. Has speed to burn. Absolutely fantastic. We know your centre depth isn't great, especially at outside centre. I think of Hunter Pasami and
Parisi
and Giteau, all three of them. Let's say this Ripley kid has a great year, and let's say Parisi and Pasami don't come back from their injuries quite 100%. Giteau goes down, which he hasn't. He's been a warrior. And again, I don't hope for any injuries, but I'm saying let's just say he does. And this Australian kid from Melbourne rips up in Melbourne during Super Rugby, gets a couple of good games under his belt, and then shows everyone what he's about in the Rugby World Cup. Can play on the wing as well. I think he's going to be an Eddie Jones prospect. I see him as one, and so that's why I've gone with him. Again, he's a very outsider. I understand why you probably don't believe in me on that one, but I've seen the talent, and he's only played a few games. I think he's one of those ones that you'll be like, holy shit, like an Ange, Cappuccino. He, as soon as he gets the ball, it's just like a spark enough to be like, oh, where did he come from? And I think Lucas Ripley's the same.
So for me, we're sticking in Australia. I've gone for Langi Gleeson. Now, you can argue that maybe last year was a breakout year for him, but I think that was the appetizer, the entree. And this year we see the main course from him, where establishing himself as a hard-hitting number 8 / blindside, but I think mainly number 8 is where his real strength is going to lie. And just establish himself as an enforcer in Super Rugby and carving a space for himself on the Wallaby squad.
Nice. I love what Langi Gleeson brings. And again, another great young prospect. I think Eddie Jones will be like, just drooling over. Bold prediction of the year. I've gone, and I've already said this one before, Melbourne Rebels will make the semi-final, follows on from Lucas Ripley, follows on from what I've seen from their squad. I think Matt Tamura leaving isn't a bad thing because it gives Carter Gordon the keys to run the show at 10 there. I think their recruitment's good. I like what I see in their front row. I just see them taking another step. They've got
that massive prop, don't they? What's his name?
Pamoa and then they signed Monte Ioane, the Italian winger. I just see a lot more spark coming there. I think Callaway moves to the fullback, Hodge on one wing or Hodge at outside centre or inside centre with Lucas Ripley, Carter Gordon. There's a lot there that I like. And I think...
So making the semi-finals, not even just the finals, just the
I think they'll make the finals. I don't think they'll finish top 4, but I think they'll upset someone in the quarterfinals.
That's a very good prediction. My one is that one of the Dura or Moana Pacifica actually just makes the finals.
Yep.
Right. So obviously they didn't make it last year, bottom 2 teams last year. But obviously it's the first year in the league.
In the competition, yeah.
Yeah. I think this year they learnt a lot from last year about what it takes. And we saw them get better as the year progressed. Like a few upset wins from in there as well. So I think one of them makes it. And someone like if the Highlanders have an off year again, they can miss out.
I definitely see there's... I don't want to say there's not enough talent. There's budding talent in the Highlanders region where there's a lot of good players. I'm unsure, unproven, young, that could easily miss out. I think... who else? The Reds lost a few good players. Hamish Stewart off to the Force. I see that they could be right for the picking, but again, Brad Fawn seems to always deliver. Even the Chiefs, we're unsure where they are. Hurricanes, the most up and down team ever. Brumbies, now with a new coach, a new system, will be really interesting. This competition really is up for grabs. I love... that we don't have to deal with COVID as much now, so you're going to get a smooth competition.
And that's why the Waratahs will win the competition, because the rest of Australian rugby is vulnerable right now, and then they'll get...
Still got to beat New Zealand teams.
Yeah, but they proved last year they could beat New Zealand teams. Who beat the Crusaders last year? The Waratahs.
But then you lost to the Chiefs in the quarterfinal, you know?
Yeah, that's fine, though. But the Waratahs will earn a high seeding point, and so they won't have to go to New Zealand to play an early one.
Do you remember that you also lost to the Hurricanes, though?
Yeah. Oh, that doesn't... Yeah, barely.
Yeah, right.
But the Hurricanes are the greatest team in the world or something. I don't know.
Yeah, they are. Yeah. They're led by
against Australian teams. But they'll get knocked out by a New Zealand team before they play the Waratahs. And the Waratahs will avenge the Hurricanes.
Okay. All right, sure. Coach of the year, final prediction. We've kept it pretty simple.
Yeah.
I've got Ian Foster, you've got Eddie Jones. We're expecting our teams to win World Cups.
Yeah, I don't think there really needs much explanation there.
I don't like that I've had to pick Ian Foster.
Ian Jones. Oh, what a horrendous hybrid that would be.
But I have to do it because I think they're going to win the Rugby World Cup. Yeah. All right, let's finish off this podcast. What we're going to do is we're going to break down our Hurricanes and Highlanders. Someone put in the comments section, I'm probably going to turn this into a reel. I don't even know if it'll actually be on the end of the podcast. What I might do for us right now is not put it in the podcast and just make reels of it and videos of it, and I can do it then. So we might say goodbye and then I can cut it and edit it if I want to put it in the podcast.
Yeah. So this might be the end of the podcast, or this might be a brief pause and then you get some bonus content. No, you know what? This is the end of the podcast, and then you might get some bonus content, or you might not, depending on how we feel.
That'll be how it'll be. So thank you for joining us for this episode of That Rugby Podcast. We will speak to you next time. See ya.
Peace.